Thanks for having us.
Action.
I'll just explain it quickly for those who are not here for the camera. Again, this is the mission essentially is to learn more, learn from homeowners about what their needs are, and then really creating opportunities around financial assistance to be able to cater to what their needs are. So we want to try to make New Yorkers more resilient and New York more resilient in the face of increasing flood insurance costs, as well as increasing flood storms and this advent of storms. So what are some of our expectations for counselors? And again, we talked about a few of these. Yes?
Are there going to be more copies?
Yes, we're printing out a few more for everyone. It's slow. It's going to a small printer, not the larger one, so apologies for that. We talked about we touched on this a little bit on the counseling kickoff, and we built upon it a little bit. We had, I'm not sure if we notified everyone, but about 2 weeks ago we had our first 3 audits, which was really great. There were 2 in Howard Beach and 1 in Red Hook. And from those experiences, I know a lot of the trainings have been catered to, flood insurance and talk about rising costs. But actually going into these audits, clearly homeowners have other things that they're thinking about, not necessarily just flood insurance. So we sort of expanded of what counseling really should be serving. And yes, talking about flood insurance and the rise of flood insurance rates is one of them. But there are some other things, such as what the household financial realities are, based on their income, based on their expenses, what can they actually afford in terms of the mitigation strategies. I know this is a difficult conversation to have with some of them. What are their plans for, future plans for the home? Are they aging in place? Are they staying in the community? Are they planning on, handing down their property to, say, a loved one? So, again, we'll talk about, applying relevant NFIP policies. Of course, as well counselors, we had the first 2 trainings, and we really went into really in-depth conversations about preferred risk and the newly mapped subsidies and grandfathering. So, assessing the client's individual circumstances and applying the NFIP policies as appropriate. The report tools will be something that you guys will be able to present to the homeowner at the end of the counseling session, and we'll go into detail about what those are. Again, ultimately what we want people to do, one of the main things that they should be walking away from this is they don't currently have flood insurance, and we know that these are homeowners who live in the high or highest risk flood zones, that they should be purchasing flood insurance. So really talking to them about how to purchase it, where to go, the benefits of doing so, and of course long-term home affordability. If they don't adopt any mitigation strategies, how is this going to affect their overall affordability of their homes, seeing as how they're likely to see at least an 18% increase per year on their flood insurance costs. For some of these homeowners, it can be upwards of $10,000, as we discussed. And then one of the main things that some of the homeowners were talking about is emergency preparedness. And I know we haven't really talked about this in the last 2 trainings, and we are starting to collect some fact sheets that we can share with you guys. We're going to put it in a Google folder of how to talk to homeowners about, protecting themselves from future storms. Things that homeowners really didn't think of, when Sandy occurred, just like moving their car, for example, to higher ground, or unplugging some utilities if they're able to move some of their utilities, to the first floor, doing so. So we understand that this is, not necessarily with regards to flood insurance, it doesn't really coincide with this, but it overall will help homeowners become more resilient in the future for floods, in the sense that they will probably be able to return to their homes at a earlier time, because they'll have heat or hot water because they took the measures to protect their homes and protect their heating that way. So again, we have some fact sheets and some handouts that we're starting to collect, and there's a wealth of knowledge out there and resources. We'd highly encourage you all to take a look at those links. There's some about pets, there's some about cars, properties, homes. There's a lot of information that Jennifer has been gathering, and so just to take a look at it and apply it when necessary. So these are the topics that we expect counselors to address during the counseling sessions. Yes.
So for the emergency preparedness strategies, I know that they were part of the full New York Rising plan, but has specifically around this, have you contacted OEM to get their input and develop strategies?
We have not contacted them. I believe we got some of the information from their website, but it would make sense, and maybe that's something that we can, take a look into.
But have that all ready to
Of
drop
working,
down.
yeah, of working with them to maybe do a training if we need to.
They'll be happy to.
That's great, yeah.
Oh,
So that's a good
I could
opportunity.
tell you contact. Do you have any contact over there?
Will has all the context, yeah.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, that probably really would be good.
Yeah.
Partners in preparedness. Thanks.
Great. Thanks for that suggestion.
Yeah, let's do that.
So messages regarding the firms, the current flood insurance rate maps, and what we're going to call, of course, the advisory flood insurance rate maps because they're not adopted. I believe in the first training that we had, Meg talked about the fact that the current firms don't really reflect, accurately reflect today's flood risks. And so while the new maps have not been adopted, clearly we're going to be using them for advisory purposes because they have been adopted for building and planning requirements, and we spoke at length about that in the last two trainings. So when you're talking to homeowners, of course, it's a very touchy, not necessarily touchy subject, but it's a very difficult subject to talk about. And so instead of just saying, we don't know what we can absolutely say that we don't know what the future flood maps would look like, but these are very close to, what we think we're going to see. If anything, the good outcome is we're probably not going to see as many buildings being mapped into higher flood zones, higher risk flood zones. Yes.
Yeah, one of the things that I found successful in getting people to sign up for flood insurance is, first of all, putting out that Mother Nature doesn't read maps, and that the Sandy inundation is almost an overlay of the preliminary maps. Probably only around the fringes of the new maps are we going to see changes. It's not going to be a significant change.
Right.
Okay. It was the methodology that was really the problem, and really emphasizing that the risk is current.
Right.
The paperwork is coming at us, but the risk is real.
Absolutely.
And they don't have to buy $250,000 worth of coverage at this time. If they get their policy in place, they can up it when the time comes 2 or 3 years from now.
And we talked about also like different levers that they can pull to essentially
Yeah,
lower their,
do a lot of
right.
that, yeah.
Great. So these are just some bullet points, just major main messaging points that you probably want to communicate to homeowners when you're counseling them based on the level of information that they want. The fact that the city appealed and won the appeal in 2016, FEMA announced that they were working with the city to create new maps. We don't know, again, what those maps will look like. They can be anywhere between 4 to 10 years from now that's been adopted based on our last conversation. But even still, as Bevan mentioned, regardless of whether or not we have new maps, of course we're going to be using the 2013 maps as advisory maps when making decisions with regard to elevation and other home resiliency options. Great, so those are the main points. I don't know if you guys had any questions about messaging, because I know it was very tricky, and any counselor expectations. If not, we'll just get into the nitty-gritty of the counseling Salesforce platform. Before we get into this, I do have one new great announcement, is the fact that in the last 2 trainings, we used a lot of our time to try to figure out how to calculate the flood insurance rate for the mitigated options. That is now something that's going to be automated within Salesforce using the information that the engineers collect on site. So you guys won't need to do the calculations for that, which I know a lot of people are very excited about. Thank you. Because that's very tricky. And you'll see it when we go into the report tools. It'll have the unsubsidized flood insurance rates for the current maps, those for the advisory maps, and then the flood insurance rate costs for the unsubsidized mitigated rates. So you'll see it based on the mitigated option, what the savings to the homeowner will be. Great. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
All right, so each of the agencies have or will continue to send us the list of counselors that will have access to Salesforce. So at some point, you guys will actually have that access and be able to sign in with your usernames and passwords. So you'll be able to familiarize yourselves once you do. And if any agencies are hiring on new counselors, our only request is that they be updated about our trainings through the YouTube links. But let's just go through here what the different RTAPP objects are. So we have the RTAPP application, which you'll see here in a moment, is a tab basically for the main object for single-family RTAPP application. So whenever homeowners create an application, they're put underneath this object. We also have properties, and it's created every time a user searches an address on Flood Help NY. We have RTAPP audits, leads, and counseling. So all of those are underneath the umbrella of RTAPP, and you'll have obviously access to counseling as well as other fields.
Right, so you won't have access to make any edits to anything other than the RTAPP counseling section. So you can view the audits, you can view the main application, you can look at the property information, but you won't have access to make any edits to it.
So once you sign up and register your account, you'll want to add the RTAPP applications to your homepage, so it's easy for you to navigate to that and every time you sign in. So the RTAPP applications, once you click on that, you're able to create different views, which will allow you to sift through the various different information that are within each application. So when you go to create different views, you're able to cherry pick different fields to then be able to have like a condensed version of what's important for you. Not in all cases is it relevant to see an advisory rate for instance, but in some cases it would be. So you would cherry pick to create a view that's pertinent to what you're working on.
And the important feature here is too that you can customize it based on your counseling, like based on the counseling organization, and so you can have just one view for NALAG, just one view for NHSP Flatbush, so that you can only focus on the cases that are assigned to your team.
Can we do that on the iPads if we're off-site, so we can can we download it on the iPad so that if we're off-site we can
Yes, that's a good question. So the engineers, when they actually go on-site, they can use Salesforce either on an iPad or on a phone, and they're able to collect information. I think Lauren's here. Great. So correct me if I'm wrong here. What you can do is you probably want to create the new counseling objects, and we'll show you how to do so before you go into before you have the actual meeting. Just in case you don't have Wi-Fi, because I think you need to establish it first, and then you can make it edits, and then it'll sync automatically.
If you were using the iPad.
Oh yeah, it's built in, right? You guys have built-in Wi-Fi. Yeah, that's right.
Well, wherever we are, we can cancel.
Right. Because you guys have a MiFi on that one, I think. Yeah, exactly. So you can actually use it anytime. You won't have that issue.
So we'll be able to use it for that application.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, once let's say once they do the audit is done, are you notified which office, you notify which counselor is going to be dealing with that person, or?
Yeah, so after, excuse me, after we get, after the audit is complete, we do a quick quality control of the engineer's record to make sure that all the necessary licensed engineers took a review of the audit.
Right.
When we do that from our homeowner hub, which is basically the scheduling component of this piece, they'll go ahead and schedule with a counseling organization.
Right.
I don't think we have it based on counselor.
Okay, but organization, that's fine.
By the organization, yeah, and that'll be based on a few things. You have to build out the schedule, and we're finalizing, as you guys know, we're finalizing the spaces. So based on whoever has availability, in Queens, and then based on, you know,
Brooklyn or where?
Brooklyn or the individual organization's availability, we'll schedule it accordingly.
Accordingly.
And at the end of the day, it really is whenever the homeowner is available, so.
Gotcha.
I know there was a
And
question
the
in the
space is
past.
available.
And the space,
Right.
right? So we'll have that already pre-selected.
Okay.
The homeowner, all they have to do is choose from the dates that are available.
Well,
And then the office will.
Right.
Okay.
So we are telling them ahead of time, because I know there was one question if, you know, if they worked with someone on the outreach side to sign them up, and if they wanted to continue to work with you, they can just notify someone, you know, at our homeowner hub, and then we can make sure, or we can try to our best of our ability to schedule them with you guys again, if that's something that we
Gotcha.
want.
I don't know if this is the point to discuss some
Sure.
scheduling challenges. Is, okay.
Sure.
Okay, because like when you're working with somebody like an offsite office, like a council person's office, their schedule does vary from time to time. They'll have an event they have to go to. So saying this is the time and the day that you have it, there has to be some flexibility there, because you can't just show up assuming it's going to be available.
Yeah, no, so we'll schedule it,
Okay.
we'll have very select time slots for each. We did this
When you
for,
say very select times, this is what I'm saying is not, it needs to be bracketed with an understanding that they cannot commit to, you know, 10 to 12, Wednesday through Friday, okay, at this office, because their schedule varies too much.
well, I don't know what issues you're referencing in the past. I'm
The
sure.
fact that the bounce back I'm getting from the council people is, yeah, we would have room, but it depends on the day and the time.
Gotcha.
So it's a triangulation between the scheduler, the counselor, and the client.
Sure.
And the office. It's the God's quad.
Yeah. So we would have to, and we can just have those conversations with
Yeah.
the elected officials.
Okay.
We've had a similar process for working with homeowners in the Build It Back program. We've had satellite office at Councilmember Richard's office, Councilmember Mizell's office. I understand that sometimes they have events. They do make the space available to us because they know how important it is to have these scheduled events, especially particularly for RTAPP, because everything is automated. And so when someone gets an email saying your counseling date is on this date, we have very little flexibility, you know, to change it. I mean, we can if they need to reschedule, but the time slots have to be, you know, they have to be narrowed in as much as possible. But we can work with you, or I know you're talking to Allison about securing some
because
sites.
like there's Wednesday evenings at Deutsch's office.
Sure, yeah.
But not every Wednesday evening, and
Right.
they don't want to have the office open if nobody's going to show up.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so we probably would want to have like
So we
a
need
backup.
more information
Sure.
to say,
Right.
yes, you know.
I understand.
Yeah.
Some of their unwilling, it's just that they,
The scheduling is important, so.
Absolutely, yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll just work, you know, we'll work with the schedule that they do give us,
Okay.
and we'll absolutely have a backup office to make sure that we have specific time slots that we can
Gotcha.
fill.
Just to finish up on this page, we have here an example of the different fields that you can drag over and view in this customized view. And these really are pertinent to what counselors will be interested in knowing. For instance, the application name, applicant phone number, case number, etc. So you're able to then pull information from these various different fields in that view to dig more into their profile. So this is really what a customized view would end up looking like. You have here the application number that's circled 108 as the RTAPP application number, and the various other fields that you had chosen to be a part of this view. So if you go and click that number 108, it'll bring you to the RTAPP application details, including the property information.
So this is the information that's collected on the pre-application. So when homeowners, you probably are familiar with some of these questions already as you're going through the website. When you sign someone up, it automatically gets automated and filled in here, and so you'll have that view. So you'll know who, you know, the person you spoke with and the basic information that they supplied for the pre-application.
is this searchable by name or just by RTAPP order number?
You can search it by name as well.
Is this good to
But if you
know?
have a view, then you don't have to if you have a view, you can just select for whoever you want. You have to make sure that, and that's one of the details that Jennifer mentioned, you can cherry pick essentially the fields that you want to select. Applicant name being one of them, so you can see it populated there.
This website is up and running now?
Yes.
Okay.
If you have your login, Salesforce login, you can.
Thanks.
Okay, so if you go to scroll down, on the bottom of that page, you'll see new RTAPP counseling. And that's what you'll hit for the clients who you counsel. Step 7 is to look up the RTAPP application name from the property information section on the main RTAPP application page. So for this will allow you to just research and to look up the applicant in a different format, am I right?
Right, yeah, so it's very important that you take the number, the 108 that you mentioned, and you apply it in the lookup. You won't be able to enter the applicant name information, but from that you have to absolutely search for it so that it can, they're basically records that are already stored, so you have to just select the record that you want tied in for that particular counseling session. So as Jennifer mentioned, the RTAPP application name for that one is 108. You want to make sure that when you do the, when you select new RTAPP counseling, that you select 108. You search for it and you select it to make sure that, you know, the same person has the same, the counseling entity is connected to the person that you want.
And something really important to note here is that there are 2 numbers underneath the RTAPP application detail. One that's the RTAPP application name and another number that's the property number. So just be careful, because if you do punch in the property number when you're trying to link the RTAPP counseling page to that applicant, you'll come up with a completely different person. Like, it won't link to the person that you're actually counseling. All right, so at this point, you'll want to look up the counseling agency. And so you'll type in the counseling agency that you're associated with. And then you'll go ahead and enter your counseling notes for each section. And this will happen after your counseling session has taken place. And then your notes.
What did you say about after the session?
I'll take the notes.
Yeah, so you'll type in your notes here.
So the notes that you put in these particular fields will populate on the home resiliency report. So basically, these are the fields that if you are, when you're advising a homeowner and you want to document something for them to, you know, take a look at, have with them some major notes of what you discussed during your counseling session, and that's what we talked about earlier about the counselor expectations. If you need to talk about emergency preparedness, of course, they're bracketed into 3 different categories. So elevation, you'll probably be talking about, you know, what their, not in so many words, but what their current BFE is, what their BFE will be, and by how much they need to, you know.
And can we do this live time while we're with them?
Absolutely, yeah. So you can type
so
it in as you go
about
along.
after the session.
So by after, it's just like right when you're ready to print out the report. This is the last step that you'll have to do.
Okay.
You'll have to include that information, and this is the information. You'll be collecting other information, sort of in like the drop-down menu, but that won't show up on the report. What will show up on the report are the notes that you document here.
Okay.
Sorry, I listed 3 fields, but there's 4. There's notes, so that's general notes, and then.
Yeah, that's a good point. So general notes is at the very bottom of the report, and that's you can also put.
At the top.
Sorry,
No,
but
she said in the report.
In the report itself. This is the.
Or when it prints out.
And you'll see it. So the note section is if there's anything that's covered that doesn't really fall into any one of those 3 categories, just overall information, you can document it there, and it'll show up on the home resiliency report. We just have it bracketed out for elevation, mitigation. Is that not right?
I'm not sure there's a general note section. I think there's just the 3 notes section.
Okay.
Unless that's changed since
I thought I saw general notes, but okay.
Okay, we'll double check.
That's fine.
That's what she's saying. It's for general notes.
So you have the category? No?
It'll probably make more sense when we look at the report itself. But the main thing that you want to focus on here is
Those three.
these three here: elevation, mitigation, and rate.
Uh-huh.
They all coincide with a particular field in the home resiliency report. And you'll see it in a second, and probably we can put them side by side. So whatever information you put here, it'll be bracketed out for when you're discussing about elevation, when you're discussing about the mitigation options that the engineers, and when you're discussing about the rate. So you just want to make sure that the notes that you enter are relevant to those particular fields, because it'll populate that way in the home resilience report.
We're talking to people about other things like household financial realities, yours preparedness strategies. Is there an expectation that we'll still be documenting that in the general notes section, even if it's not showing up in the report? Or will you guys kind of take our word for it?
So that's a good point. I think there's ways to include that information as part of, you know, the elevation of when you're talking about the financial realities, or if the mitigations, if the recommendations are to elevate, and the homeowner doesn't really have the funds, right? Then you would probably document it there that this is not something that's realistic for the homeowner. Perhaps they should adopt, you know, the other mitigation strategies that engineers recommend. Because having gone to the first 3 audits, they just don't do one. They do present several mitigation options.
Okay.
And your discussions are going to be very relevant and based on, you know, what the homeowner really talks to you about. That's what you're going to want to put in there. And you can also, this is also an opportunity, and Joseph, you chime in, opportunity for you to discuss, you know, if there are any resources that they can use, any ICC claims, any other, you know, private loans or anything like that, future resources that hopefully we're able to devise, then that's probably the section where you want to put it in.
Yeah, I think you would think of this as what you want to communicate, what's important for you to communicate to the client. And there's lots of other fields that really capture things that will help us kind of as a program understand the community's needs, and we'll get into that, but this is going to show up on their report, so it's really something, if you think it's important to that homeowner to have kind of in a report, you want to put it here. So if the most important thing that you talked about with that client was how they're going to be able to afford the home 5 years out after they retire, capture that. So this isn't intended to be like, this isn't the entirety of data and the data collection that takes place in the program, if that helps. I think it would be helpful once we look at the report, actually.
Will we be able to review the, whatever the engineer has put, okay, but I just want to make sure that, because if we're sitting with them in front of them and we have our computer and we're talking and typing, we can kind of say, okay, well, the engineer says that this is going to happen, and so we know we have to do this elevation level here, this is where you'll be, but, you know, then the person will then chime in and say, well, I don't know, you know, and then the mitigation option, financial, you know, I can't afford to do this, but I might be able to do that. You know,
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's what you want there.
You'll have access to view the technical report, which is really what the engineer went out and documented.
And
You'll
what
have
it did,
access to
right.
that. You'll have access to the home resiliency report ahead
Okay,
of time.
great.
These
Okay.
are things you probably want to do ahead of time
Before we see
the
that.
counseling
Yes.
session anyway.
Okay.
So yes, you'll have access to all of that.
Okay.
But if the homeowner wants a copy of that, we're going to be able to give it.
Absolutely, yeah. So
Okay.
at the end of the session, you should be able, we're currently building this out, so that'll be in the coming soon category. We'll send you guys, because currently the way that it's programmed is, as we mentioned, the homeowner will have a very specific URL that they can click, a specific link to their, you know, their application that they can click to find out where they stand in the application progress, whether it's in, you know, a pre-application, application, the audit, and the counseling. Once the counseling is complete, they'll have the option to go in to review their home resiliency report, to review the technical report, and to review their elevation certificate. So these are all downloadable documents that they can have as well. Of course, you guys should be able to see this as well. So we're gonna build out an opportunity for you guys to be able to print it on site.
I don't know whether I missed it or not, but you're talking to a homeowner. Is there a specific time frame, like I'm talking to them, well, no, I can't do this, and no, I don't have this, and well, this, and we say this is what's going to happen. So if we're saying this is the possibility of what's going to happen, does that happen within the year? Does it happen within 6 months if they don't do certain things? Is there, a time frame? So suppose they say, okay, listen, I'm going to fill in my basement, and I'm going to do this, and then my insurance rates, whatever. But suppose they say, I have no money, I have nothing, and I guess you do what you have to do.
Right.
Is there, so when they say something like that, what happens to them then? Do they get that rate that's reported in the report? So I'm not sure how, is it a time frame? I'm not
Right.
kind
So
of getting this.
this is an educational tool for the homeowner. They will get an elevation certificate that they can bring to a flood insurance company to get flood insurance if they don't currently have it, or to correct one. But this information is not going to be sent anywhere. So they shouldn't, just by going through this process, they shouldn't be, they shouldn't expect to have their rates increase based on what the engineers found, or decrease based on what the engineers found. So it really is a tool for them to get an understanding of, what their current risks are, what mitigation strategies they can adopt to lower their risks, and to provide some resources for them, whether it be financial, which we know are very limited, or just, to talk about their financial, the realities, of their current state, just so that they become well aware of where they're living and what they're going to experience, so that they can, if anything, we're expecting that most people won't be able to take the necessary mitigation strategies, right? If a lot of people say, they want to pursue elevation, but they don't have the funds, and there aren't any resources for that. Remember, this is the second part of this program that what we're trying to do is gather this information so that we can create opportunities. So it's not just informational and educational. Hopefully, we can do something about this. At the current state, there aren't that many resources for them. But yeah, this will just be a tool for them to use to plan accordingly.
Thank you.
The premiums that are going to be generated by the system are like nailing down jello to a tree, okay? They're predictive in the sense that they give you a sense of what it's going to, the kind of difference you're looking at between unmitigated and mitigated. But they cannot say, oh, well, you told me it was going to cost me X number of dollars and 34 cents, because the National Flood Insurance Program is going through a reauthorization process in 2017, and there's a huge number of we don't know yet. We know that they want to rate people at their actuarially sound risk rate, and there's a great deal of discussion around what that means, okay, especially led by New York. So these are not going to be carved in stone, but I think what's useful for the people to see is that you're looking at the difference between what would currently be a $400 a year policy and one that would be $12,000. Okay. That they cannot walk away thinking, this is the number I'm going to get in 3 years when the maps change.
Right.
That is not the information.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So, again, during or after the counseling session, these are some of the fields that, or the topics of discussion that you will likely have with each of these homeowners. So again, these will be in Salesforce for you to go through and check off once your counseling session has been completed. Are there any that you want to go over specifically?
This just, and keep in mind, this is also kind of a management tool, so if you're supervising staff and you want to make sure that they're doing a good job on these counseling sessions, this is one way to make sure that, okay, these are this is what an RTAPP counseling session looks like. We should probably have been hitting all of those things. There may be exceptions, but this is what we're thinking right now, and that may change as we go through and do some sessions and we realize, oh gosh, people really want to talk about topic X and we didn't anticipate that. We're already starting to learn about that from our first audits, whereas, it'll be hard to even get to a lot of these, to the flood insurance information, which is vital. But if you're not being responsive to the thing that they show up in the office wanting to talk about, you're going to have a hard time getting through about some of these important messages.
So that was something that came up during the first two kickoff sessions. When we talked about how much counseling time we were anticipating, how many sessions would satisfy the requirements. So what are you looking at as far as that, as far as time spent with the plan, number of visits?
Yeah, no, actually it's still the one counseling session for anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour and a half. I think we have bracketed out based on their discussions.
Well, then one of the things we want to do is counseling this counseling session is one point in a multi-part process. If you guys are starting to find that we're spending a ton of time going over the same thing, collecting the same basic information, we may want to take some of that and move it earlier in the process. Maybe that's something that our team here catches before it gets to you, to sort of lessen the intake burden. Maybe it's something that needs to be incorporated into the report so that you don't have to do like a hand calculation. I mean, that was one of the things that we were working on the past month, is like, it's going to be a ton of work to hand calculate all these mitigation strategies. So, you know, if you're seeing things like that we can front load or automate, we want to try to take advantage of that. We do want to keep it too. Yeah, everything, right? Yeah.
Will we be able to
The issue's already been addressed.
Will we be able to see a mock on a session?
That's something that we want to work on for the first 3 audits. We want to have like a workshop.
No, just to see.